And we're back. You got a drink. Oh, jeez. I forgot the whole time that I've got a drink. I'm not being sponsored. Don't worry. No. It's not a plug. It's like, yeah, drink this. I remember I saw there was 11 years ago when we had the Olympics in London, right? And then McDonald's was the official sponsor for athletes.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. How the hell did that happen?
My Facebook post, I posted a Patrick Stewart meme of Star Trek, as Captain Jean-Luc Picard pointing like, why the is McDonald's sponsoring Olympics? It blew my mind. But now, as a conglomerate, as a company, as an LLC, I get it. It's not about what's being put out there, it's about their priority. It's not about how you feel, it's about their priority. Their priority supersedes everyone's priority because they have the money. Their priority was, okay, the Olympics, you have so many people
watching it
around the world watching it. We might spend $2 billion making our names more of a household name than it already is. But that $2 billion would remind people, because now everyone knows McDonald's. Everyone knows McDonald's. But it's that constant advertisement is a constant reminder to go and buy McDonald's. That was it. 1, 2, as long as they buy the advertising space, no one else can buy that space. So put it this way, they basically use that much money to block all the adverts, to block every other competition, because by them doing that, no one else could fill in that space. And look at where they are today, even bigger than they were yesterday. But that's the business, that's advertising, and that's one method that a person could use for anxiety versus priority. And then it becomes priority versus anxiety, which is literally the example of that. No matter how you feel about it, I feel about it, guess what? It's going to be done, because that's priority. In the moment, it sounds impossible or seems impossible, but you put your mind to something, you're going to do it.
With McDonald's, I get what they're doing. I can't criticize that. It's the fact that the Olympics signed up for that. But then I'm sure, the necessary people were paid.
Well, if I were a food company and I sold fast food and I had the opportunity to advertise in a healthy competition, I would sell healthy foods. I would sell the idea of healthy foods. And I would get a few of the well-known athletes and I'll pay them good money to say, hey, I endorse this. They don't care, because the athletes are athletes. A lot of people seem to forget that. Well, not forget. A lot of people seem to watch TV and make the assumption that the person they see on television is a role model or is smart enough to know what they're doing. Most people are not. They're not. They're actually not. Here's why. Imagine you see an advert on television about this bodybuilder drinking this protein shake. That just came out 2 weeks ago. Brand new protein shake came out 2 weeks ago. Bodybuilders drinking it. Guess what? You seeing that bodybuilder drinking that protein shake that just came out a fortnight ago, you're gonna buy it because they endorse it. Because your brain, the stupid part of your brain is telling you that, oh, that person drank that protein shake, therefore looks like that.
Yep.
Say it again. That drink came out 2 weeks ago. That bodybuilder has been that way for years.
It's interesting.
So how, Sway, is it that that person went back in or went forward in the future to buy the shake and came back in time, and it's not the shake that made them look buff, it's them, not the shake. But again, representation in the media, you see that on TV and go, oh wow, if I buy that protein shake, I'll look like that. Same thing for clothing as well. This model will wear this shirt or these trousers because that model looks the part. Everyone assumes that if they buy that shirt, that dress, that whatever, they will look just like that, but they won't. But it's the whole media thing. So McDonald's play that very well.
Yeah.
Everyone plays it well.
They spend billions on marketing and advertising. Yeah.
But how much do they get back though?
No, it works.
There you go.
It works. It's that repetition.
We don't talk about that, do we? How much they got back of that? Oh, we spent this much on that.
Repetition.
Huh?
And it's to the point where I'll be honest, I'm not someone that eats McDonald's now, but it used to be a thing where when I was traveling sometimes, at times I would just go and grab a McDonald's because it was that familiarity.
That's my point.
Do you see what I mean?
You've seen it often.
Because I've seen it so many times, but let's say I'm in, I don't know, Thailand for a few weeks or whatever, and I'm eating Thai food every day, and everything's heavily seasoned, and it's peanut oil, and it's spicy, and it's all the rest of it. And sometimes you're like, oh, do you know what? I just want to eat something familiar.
Something that's healthy.
And I remember that, yeah, and I remember this happened when I was in Peru as well. I started craving a full English breakfast. I'm thinking, I didn't even eat a full English breakfast, but it was just the familiarity of something that I know, you know, and it's that repetition of exposure.
Something that you've seen all the time.
It's crazy.
It's really...
Yeah, craving the McDonald's.
Yeah, in Peru craving English breakfast.
What? Imperial craving.
You know.
I just want to eat some baked beans for some reason. I don't know why. Like, I need to eat some bacon, like.
And some hash browns.
Bruv. And there's certain companies that would to capitalize off that. They'd be like, okay, we provide food for expats because, you know, when English people go places, they're not immigrants. They're expats. Yeah.
Expatriates. That's funny.
Ridiculous. And they'd sell McDonald's or not McDonald's. They sell baked beans or Heinz ketchup and, you know, those things that you would get here.
Funny. You're too funny, bro. Oh my gosh. Okay. Question though.
Go on.
How could you, how should you, what would your suggestion be to deal with anxiety? Not depression, anxiety.
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 That's a good question, man. The first thing I would say is, in a lot of cases when people have an issue, they just accept it and just resign themselves to that. They make an identity out of it. And that can be dangerous, in my opinion, because oftentimes once someone just accepts that, then they're not really gonna move towards being healthier or potentially overcoming it. They're just, you know, oftentimes you hear people, it's almost like a badge of honor, right? They're like, yes, I have this, I have that, I suffer from that. And they take on this identity of being someone that has that. And I'm not saying every case of anxiety can be cured or will be cured, but I would say the first thing I would say is to be open-minded about the possibility of recovery, of being healthy, and making a decision to improving it. Because again, I think people get better when they decide to get better, and oftentimes people don't actually decide to get better because there's certain secondary gains that come with being with suffering from a certain condition. You know, it might be a situation, for example, where you're like, oh well, I can't go there because I have anxiety, or I'm not going to be doing this, and it becomes like a card you can play. So I would say, first of all, being open-minded about the possibility of recovery to choosing to recover, and then educating yourself about the subject. And for me personally, it was exposure first and foremost. It was putting myself in situations that were uncomfortable, which I knew would trigger anxiety, and doing that more and more. And there's different ways. If you look at different forms of treatment, like people use techniques that are used to cure anxiety and phobias. You have graded exposure, for example. So let's say the greatest anxiety you would have would be, let's say you get anxiety from spiders, or you have like a phobia, fear of spiders or whatever, and the top level would be, for example, a spider walking on your hand, right? But then at the lowest level, it might be looking at a picture of a spider. For some people, their fear generalizes and becomes so strong that even seeing a picture of a spider will trigger a phobic response. But you can create a graded exposure, and maybe working with therapists is a better way to do it. But you could create a graded exposure where you kind of expose yourself to the lowest levels of that bit by bit and increase it. On the other end, there's flooding, which is where you do a much more extreme thing. So the extreme alternative of that would be like if you went and you put yourself in a situation where there were spiders around you, on you, or whatever, and just stayed in it until you got through the kind of terror shit. Because at a certain point, you can't stay like terrified for that long. Like at a certain point, you start to relax. That's a very extreme way of doing it. But yeah, I kind of did a mixture of both, I guess. Did a bit of flooding, because I would just put myself in situations that were difficult. I would go and give speeches. I would go and anything which I thought would challenge me or get me out of my comfort zone, I would do. And eventually, I just made it just kind of reduced over time. But I would say, yeah, educate yourself on the condition, and see what you can do on your own. And potentially, if it's really debilitating and you can't work through it yourself, then I think you should seek some form of help, that's a therapist or a hypnotherapist or whatever. But yeah, I'd say just keep moving forward, because again, I find another thing I notice is people will try something, it doesn't work, and then they just go, okay, yeah, and they give up. But there's so many different ways you can skin a cat, so to speak.
Dude, you said a few things where there are two things that you've said there, and those two things, that's another episode on. So those two things that we can do a whole hour and a half on.
Which ones?
About the fear thing and the giving up for trying once thing. So the fear thing, there's fear and there's primal fear. So it's theorized about primal fear. That's fear that you're born with, innate fear.
Okay.
Primal fear, and it's fear that's poured down through the mRNA, through your memory of DNA. Your DNA. You have a fear for something and you don't even know where it comes from.
Okay.
That's a phobia. You have a primal fear of something that you don't even know where it came from. Now, it has been theorized that primal fear comes from history. Again, primal history. So, for example, there was an era where London was plagued with rats. The Black Plague. Right? A lot of people...
Racist, sorry.
That's fine. Couldn't care more or less. A lot of people died. And that fear of death was passed down through generations, through the DNA. Even those who never experienced it or didn't have a first-hand story of what happened, still have to today have a primal fear of rats. There are some families that got killed, got poisoned, snake poisoning, spider poisoning, and that primal fear has poured down that genetic line down to a fear of something.
Okay.
Which also correlates with the transatlantic express. theorized. It's something as during that era, a lot of ships capsized, a lot of ships were sunken, a lot of the people who were captured fought back and were thrown overboard.
Off the ships, yeah.
The ones who did not agree to the terms and conditions were thrown overboard, right? And that transatlantic way, sharks started migrating that way because the sharks kept feeding on them. To today, that's the path of sharks in the transatlantic express.
Oh, sounds like a nice train, transatlantic express.
You understand? It's to today. That's how sharks migrate.
That's nuts.
Because
That
but this is not in European history. They don't want to talk about this
crazy.
because for years, for ages, for those species, if they follow the ships, they would feed. It was a guarantee. You know what I mean? Makes sense. So it's like you're feeding pigeons. They keep coming to you.
Yeah. After a while,
There you
they'll
go.
know.
So now you took these Africans to islands after them seeing their own people fall off ships and be eaten. You know, in the ocean, you now took these Africans to islands and left them there with the knowledge that, with the fear that if they get in the water again, those sharks will eat them. Does that make sense? And then you wonder why a lot of black people have an innate fear of the ocean, of water. Primal fear.
Yeah, I figured that's where you were going with it.
But again, it's theorized. So that's that one. But that in itself, that fear, primal fear, that's another entirely different episode we're gonna do.
No, we should do it, man, because I've heard the thing about the only fears we're born with are fears of falling, and there's one other, and all the other fears are apparently learned.
Right. Fear of falling is not a fear. I know. It's not fear of falling, it's fear of landing.
Why are you like this, man?
You're welcome.
Such a contrarian.
It's true. We don't fear falling, we fear landing.
C'est pas la chute, c'est le
If you
atterrissage.
fell and you landed softly, you fall all over again. If you fell forever, you fall all over again. We don't fear the heights, we fear the impact on the floor. We don't fear monsters, we fear the pain they will give to us. We don't fear fighting, we fear the first punch. We fear the pain.
Yeah.
So it's not fear of heights we fear, it's fear of pain. It's the innate thing. We fear that thing under our bed is going to give us pain. When you don't fear pain, you fear nothing. Again, primal.
The thing that strikes me about the whole fear thing is it's so internal, because to take it a step further, it's not the fear of pain, it's the fear of how you're going to feel if you have to experience that pain.
Anxiety.
And so really you're fearing your own feelings.
Anxiety.
That's the craziest thing. Like,
Full
that's
circle.
become really clear to me. It's like, wait a minute, it's not even that thing out there. It's about how I'm gonna process it internally, how I think I'm gonna feel.
Full circle.
It's nuts. Yeah.
And then what happens is you prioritize. If I have to go for that pain to get the job done, so be it. And then you get the job done and realize, oh, it wasn't as painful anyway. I just thought it was painful, so I assumed it was painful, but it wasn't painful.
I remember when I was learning to box, and the first time I sparred, like, I was thinking, oh, what's it gonna be like when I get hit? Because, you know, I don't know, and blah blah blah. And then I got hit. I didn't even feel it. I had so much adrenaline going through me, I didn't even feel it. And then I saw blood on his glove, and I was like, why is there blood on his? There's blood on his glove. I was like, but he's not bleeding. And then I was like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. And then I just went after it, man. I remember I was like, it wasn't pretty because I didn't know what I was doing, but
I like that.
I
Wait
was
a minute.
like, oh, okay, interesting.
That's funny.
His blood all over his glove. He had white gloves as well. I remember I was like,
yeah.
but his face is clean. What?
That's too funny, brother.
But yeah, the fear was like, oh. And I think one of the big fears people have is not being able to handle it. Right? ABC happens and like, what if?
Dude, see, the fear thing is also part of your circles, your structure, your upbringing, your raising, your everything. Because if you were constantly around people who challenge fear all the time, you become that person as well.
Yeah.
If you are around people who complain, nag, moan about fear, you become them.
Yeah.
If your circle are constantly pushing forward, regardless, you become them. So it's who you are around, who you surround yourself with. I've also seen, I said this in another podcast, I've also seen a scenario whereas teachers in schools do not encourage the kids to try harder or to try more.
Yeah.
Or to do it again. It's more of a, you did it once, you didn't do it well, okay, move on.
Yes.
And it goes, But then, now here's the twist. The parents as well are not as attentive as they should be to the child's life. So the child goes like, I can't do this. And the parents go, who said that? The teacher. Okay, cool, fine.
I'll give you an example of what you're talking about. I've heard certain artists talk about working with Kanye West, and they would go and record their verse, and he would say to them, "Is that the best you can do?
Do it again."
And they're looking at him like, you know, I'm blah blah, fill in the blank, right? Push a T, like I mean, this guy's asking me, is this, you know, and he's just looking you dead in your face, like, is this the best you can do? And I can't remember if it was Pusha, but he had someone go in there and redo it like 2 or 3 times, and then at the end of it, he was like, okay, and then he went with the verse, and I was like, that's real interesting, because there's very few people, especially once you're good and they respect your craft, there's very few that are gonna go, is this the best you can do?
If you pay attention and listen to the lyrics, it's a Kanye West thing, it's an Eminem thing, it's a Jay-Z thing, it's a Jadakiss thing, it's a Red and Meth thing. It's a nasty thing. You can tell these people have sat down, they've written, they've gone back, rewrite it, they've gone back and go, no, I can do better. Does that make sense? So it's good you can write 16 bars in a heartbeat, but you are trying to make sure that thing you drop lasts forever. Yeah. It's not for
it's a different thing.
The pop hits number one. No,
it's not for this week.
You're trying to make sure that when you are gone, that which you've spoken is still relevant. That's the key to immortality. It's not your that lives forever. It's your essence. It's your work. It's your work of art that lives forever. It's that simple. So I like that. So I like Kanye West because he is one of the most misunderstood men on earth today.
And the thing is, to do that takes courage, man.
Yeah, look someone dead in the eye and said, I need better than that.
It takes courage. I've been in studios and to look at an artist in the face and be like, I think you can do it better. But that's exactly what you need. You need people that are honest enough to say that to you.
It's the same. It's a similar case. Yesterday, well, a few days ago, or from the video. Actually, yesterday, I looked someone dead in his eyes. Someone who was a threat to other people. Looking dead in his eyes. I said, you can't come here anymore. Dead in his eyes. And he had the look of, I want to bap you.
Really?
And I had the look of, I couldn't give a rat's ass or more. If you're gonna go, let's go.
How long is he like very experienced?
What?
as a martial
There's
artist?
no one that's more than me.
Yeah, I know that. I'm just
That's
curious
my
if
point.
this was like a young kid who's been training for a few months, or if
Young
he's
fella, young fella,
figured he'd be young.
young fella. You know, the world is your oyster, all that kind of stuff. Like you need to have your way, or forget it, all that kind of stuff. You've always had things your way.
Yeah. It's a waste,
nah.
man.
But we ain't doing that here, but somewhere else, yes, not here. So yeah.
That's like the first rule, man, isn't it? It's like, don't use this, don't take this and use it to hurt people.
It's an unwritten rule.
It's an unwritten rule, but like every martial artist
I
I
have
know
to
just
mention it to
understands that. Like, do you know what I mean? Exactly. It's
If
like,
I have to mention that to you in the first place, that means you don't get it. In the first place. But yeah. It is what it is, brother. So no. One, you need to generally, I think, closing thoughts, you need to push yourself beyond. It's not for your comfort, it's for your discomfort. You want to get used to being uncomfortable. When you get used to being uncomfortable, you grow better, bigger, faster. It's when you are not accustomed to being uncomfortable, that's when the moment discomfort comes, anxiety kicks in. You kind of want to make yourself constantly.
It's almost like make a friend with fear, like as they say.
Yes, fear is your friend. Fear. You want to make fear your sparring partner. It's why one of the wise things to do is, we'll say, do one thing every day that scares you. Do one thing that scares you every day. Because when you are constantly being uncomfortable,
then it's going to become familiar.
It's familiar. It's a muscle. If you are always training your muscles are primed for combat, primed for action, primed for activity. But if you don't train it at all, you do it 1 hour or 2 hours a week, it's not ready. You know, so yeah, it is what it is.
Dope.
Any closing thoughts, sir?
No, I'm just processing some of the ideas. Actually, some real interesting stuff. Priority over anxiety.
Okay. Well, everyone, it's been emotional. We'll see you next time. Peace. Just go pop.